Derek Larson thought he ruled Franklin High, a king in a small Tennessee town. He saw Maya Jackson, the new black girl, as an easy mark. But in 1 minute, she'd turn his world upside down, forcing him to his knees. A courtroom would question her courage, and a community would rise because of it. Can one quiet girl change a school forever? What does it take to stand up when the system looks away? Stay with us for a story of grit and grace. If it moves you, like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. Let's dive into Maya's journey. It was a crisp fall morning in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, when 16-year-old Maya Jackson stepped through the doors of Franklin High. Her family had just moved from Atlanta, her parents stationed overseas as military officers. She lived with her grandparents, James and Celine, who'd raised her with quiet strength. Maya was no stranger to new starts, her third school in 4 years. Average height, slim, with neatly braided hair and a plain sweater, she blended in, speaking softly to avoid notice. But her grandparents, former karate coaches, had taught her a secret. She was a state champion, her strikes honed to precision. They urged her to keep it hidden. "No need to flaunt, Maya," Celine had said, "but never bow to wrong." At Franklin, trouble found her fast. In the crowded cafeteria, Derek Larson, a broad-shouldered senior with a smug grin, sauntered over, flanked by 2 friends, Ethan and Caleb. "Hey, new girl," he drawled. "I'm Derek. This is my school, my rules." Maya glanced up from her lunch, voice steady. "I'm Maya. Nice to meet you." Derek leaned closer, his shadow looming. "City girls like you gotta pay respect. $5 a day. Protection fee." The table fell silent, eyes on her. Maya Jackson carried her grandparents' lessons in her heart. Stay humble, keep her strength hidden, avoid trouble at all costs. But Derek Larson's taunts in the Franklin High cafeteria cut deeper than she could ignore. His smug demand for a protection fee echoed in her mind, a challenge to the quiet life she'd promised her parents. Military officers stationed far from Oak Ridge, Tennessee. The next morning, with her braided hair tucked neatly under a scarf, Maya walked to the teacher's lounge, her steps deliberate, but her stomach knotted with hope. She believed the school would listen, that fairness would prevail. Before Mrs. Reed, her history teacher with kind eyes and a worn cardigan, Maya spoke softly but firmly. "Derek Larson and his friends are harassing me, ma'am. They're demanding $5 a day for protection. It's not right." Mrs. Reed's brow furrowed, her pen pausing over a stack of papers. She nodded, promising to take it higher. "I'll speak to Mr. Harris, Maya." "Don't worry." Relieved, Maya thanked her, clinging to the belief that adults would act. Later that day, she was called to the assistant principal's office. Mr. Harris, a wiry man with thinning gray hair, sat behind a cluttered desk, his tie slightly askew. The air felt heavy, the room too small for the weight of her words. Maya repeated her story, her voice steady, despite the unease creeping in. "Derek's group follows me, Mr. Harris. They won't stop." Harris leaned back, his fingers tapping the desk, eyes avoiding hers. "Maya, boys like Derek are just roughhousing. It's how kids figure things out. His family, they're big in Oak Ridge, fund our football team, the new gym. This isn't as serious as you're making it." His words landed like a slap, tinged with a subtle dismissal that Maya recognized too well. A hint of bias, a refusal to see her as more than the new black girl from the city. She stood, shoulders squared, but said nothing, her trust in the system crumbling. At home, the scent of Celine's cornbread warmed the kitchen. Maya's voice cracked as she told James and Celine. They didn't care, Grandpa, Grandma. James, his hands scarred from dojo days, leaned forward, voice steady. "We taught you karate to stand tall, Maya, not to cower." "You're a Jackson." Celine gripped her hand, eyes fierce. Silence can be strong, but not when it lets wrong win. You've got power, child. Their words stirred memories. Her first dojo lesson, small fists bruising under their watchful eyes, their cheers at her state championship. She saw her parents' courage, serving overseas, urging her to honor their name. The school's failure fueled her fire. Mr. Harris saw only the new black girl, but James and Celine saw her strength. As she sat, their lessons, forged in decades of resilience, reignited her resolve. She wasn't alone. Her grandparents, her first coaches, stood with her. Derek thought he ruled, but Maya would show him what a Jackson could do. Maya Jackson clung to her grandparents' words, "Stay quiet, stay humble." But Derek Larson's cruelty was a storm she couldn't outrun. In the bustling cafeteria of Franklin High, the air thick with chatter and the clatter of trays, Derek and his crew zeroed in on her. Maya sat alone, her lunch untouched, trying to blend into the crowd. Derek sauntered over, his broad frame casting a shadow across her table, his friends Ethan and Caleb smirking behind him. With a deliberate flick of his wrist, he tipped her coffee mug, the dark liquid soaking her books and dripping onto her lap. "Know your place, city girl," he sneered, loud enough for the room to hear. Laughter rippled from nearby tables, a few students pulling out phones to record. Maya's hands trembled, her pulse racing, but she kept her eyes down, remembering her mother's plea for peace. The sting of humiliation burned, sharper than any punch she'd ever thrown in the karate dojo. She walked home that evening, the weight of the day heavy on her shoulders. At her grandparents' Oak Ridge home, the kitchen glowed with warmth, the scent of Celine's cornbread lingering. Maya's voice broke as she told James and Celine what happened. "He humiliated me, Grandma. Everyone saw." Celine's eyes, sharp with wisdom, met hers. "You're a Jackson, Maya. We don't bow to bullies, and we don't let them break us." James, his voice steady as ever, added, "You've got strength, not just in your fists, but in your heart. Use it wisely, but use it." Their words, forged from years of teaching her to stand tall, cut through her doubt. She thought of her parents, serving overseas, trusting her to carry their name with pride. The cafeteria scene replayed, Derek's smirk, the laughter, the phones. Maya's fists clenched, not in anger, but resolve. She wasn't just fighting for herself now. The kids watching, the ones too scared to speak up, deserved better. Her grandparents' lessons echoed. Strength wasn't for show, it was for justice. As she lay in bed that night, the spark in her chest grew into a flame. Derek had pushed too far, and Maya was ready to show him what she was made of. Maya Jackson lay awake, the sting of Derek Larson's cruelty replaying in her mind, the coffee soaking her books, the cafeteria's mocking laughter. Her grandparents' words, sharp and steady, anchored her. James and Celine, her first karate coaches, had taught her more than strikes. They'd given her a code. In the quiet of their Oak Ridge home, she slipped out to the backyard, where moonlight glinted off the old punching bag swaying in the breeze. Each strike she threw was precise, her breath steady, her body remembering years of training. She was a state champion, but her strength had always been a secret, locked away to keep peace. Now that peace felt like surrender. Maya paused, sweat beading on her brow, and saw her grandfather watching from the porch. James, his voice warm but firm, spoke. "Strength ain't for show, Maya. It's for what's right." Celine joined him, her gaze fierce. "You protect yourself, child, and those who can't. That's what we taught you." Their words stirred memories of her first dojo lesson, her small hands bruising but never quitting, their cheers at her victories. Her parents' letters from overseas echoed the same pride. "Be strong, Maya, in all you do." Derek's face flashed, his smirk, his threats. She wasn't just a girl he could push. She carried a legacy. The school's silence, Mr. Harris's dismissal fueled her resolve. Maya knew hiding wasn't living. She thought of the kids at Franklin High, the ones watching in fear, their silence louder than Derek's taunts. Her grandparents' lessons were clear. Don't flaunt, but don't shrink. She could act, not for revenge, but for justice. As she struck the bag again, each hit felt like a promise, to herself, to her family, to those who needed her. James nodded, his eyes gleaming with trust. You're ready, Maya. Be smart, but be you. Celine squeezed her shoulder, her voice soft. We're with you, always. The fire in Maya's chest burned bright. Derek thought he ruled Franklin High, but he'd soon learn what strength really meant. She wasn't alone. Her grandparents' wisdom, her parents' courage, were her armor. Tomorrow she'd face him. Not as a victim, but as a Jackson. The air hung heavy in the Franklin High parking lot as Maya Jackson stood her ground, the asphalt still warm from the Tennessee sun. Derek Larson, flanked by Ethan and Caleb, towered over her, his smirk sharp as a blade. He'd mocked her for days, spilled her coffee, demanded his protection fee. Now he'd followed her off to school, his voice dripping with scorn. You think you can ignore me, city girl? Maya's pulse quickened, but her grandparents' words steadied her. James and Celine, her karate coaches, had taught her control, not chaos. She was no victim. Her braids swayed slightly as she met Derek's gaze, her voice calm but firm. I'm done with your games, Derek. Walk away. He laughed, a harsh bark that echoed off the parked cars, and stepped closer, fists clenched. The small crowd of students gathering held their breath, phones raised, ready to capture her humiliation. But Maya wasn't here to lose. She shifted her weight, her body loose yet poised, every muscle honed by years of training. Derek lunged, his punch wild and sloppy. In a heartbeat, Maya sidestepped, her movements fluid, like water slipping past stone. She struck once, a precise jab to his midsection, targeting the nerve cluster her grandfather had shown her. Derek gasped, his knees buckling, and he crumpled to the ground, clutching his stomach. The crowd gasped, murmurs rippling through them. Ethan and Caleb froze, their bravado evaporating. Maya stood tall, her breath even, her eyes locked on Derek's. Stay down, she said, her tone not cruel but final. He wheezed, his face pale, the king of Franklin High reduced to a boy in the dirt. Memories flashed. James teaching her to strike with purpose. Celine's voice urging her to protect, not destroy. This wasn't about revenge. It was about ending his reign. Derek struggled to his knees, his voice hoarse. Okay, I'm sorry. Maya didn't gloat. She stepped back, her hands relaxed, her strength a quiet force. You don't scare me, she said. And you won't scare anyone else. The crowd was silent now, phones still recording, but their eyes held something new. Respect. Maya felt her parents' pride, her grandparents' trust, steadying her. She'd kept her secret for peace, but peace wasn't worth her dignity. As she walked away, the weight of Derek's threats lifted, replaced by a fire she couldn't ignore. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. The kids watching, the ones too afraid to speak, needed her. Her grandparents had been right. Strength wasn't for show. It was for justice. Derek's apology was a start, but Maya knew this moment would ripple through Franklin High. She was no longer the new girl. She was a force, and her story was just beginning. Maya Jackson's stand in the Franklin High parking lot sent shockwaves through the school. Derek Larson's defeat wasn't just a moment. It was a crack in the armor of fear he'd built. The next morning, the halls buzzed with whispers, students stealing glances at Maya as she walked, her head high but her demeanor quiet. She didn't seek the spotlight, but it found her. At noon, Derek faced her in the crowded cafeteria, his face flushed, his usual swagger gone. "I was wrong, Maya," he said, his voice low but clear, carrying over the hum of voices. "I'm sorry." The room stilled, forks pausing mid-air. Maya nodded, her expression calm, not triumphant. "Just don't do it again," she said softly, her grandparents' lessons echoing. Strength is control, not cruelty. The apology wasn't just for her. It was for every kid Derek had tormented. Students clapped, hesitant at first, then louder, their relief palpable. Maya felt her parents' pride from miles away, her grandparents' wisdom grounding her. Later, in the principal's office, the air was thick with change. Principal Brooks, a tall man with silver hair and a steady gaze, had returned from a conference to find his school in upheaval. He'd heard about Maya's courage and Mr. Harris's failure to act. Sitting across from Maya, with James and Celine beside her, Brooks spoke firmly. "Mr. Harris let you down, Maya. He let this school down. Ignoring bullying because of a family's influence is a betrayal of our values." Harris, standing in the corner, shifted uncomfortably, his excuses silenced. Brooks continued. "He's being reassigned to a role where he can't dodge responsibility." Maya's grandparents exchanged a glance, their pride unspoken, but clear. James's hand rested on her shoulder, a quiet anchor. Brooks leaned forward, his voice warm. "Maya, you've shown us what courage looks like. You're this school's pride." Maya's chest tightened, not with fear, but with purpose. She hadn't fought for praise, but to protect. Outside, the school felt different. Kids who once ducked their heads now walked taller. Maya's name was whispered with respect, not pity. Her grandparents' teachings, "Don't flaunt, but don't shrink," had sparked something bigger. She thought of her parents serving overseas and how they'd taught her to carry the Jackson name with honor. This wasn't just her victory. It was a shift. Franklin High was waking up, and Maya was at its heart. James and Celine walked her home, their steps light, their voices soft with stories of their own battles. "You did good, child," Celine said, her smile fierce. Maya knew this was only the beginning. Others still needed her, and she was ready. Her strength, once hidden, was now a beacon, and Oak Ridge would never be the same. Maya Jackson's victory over Derek Larson lit a spark at Franklin High, but the shadows of fear lingered. At the Oak Ridge bus stop, under the fading light of a Tennessee afternoon, trouble found her again. Travis Coleman, a wiry junior with a chip on his shoulder, had taken up Derek's mantle. He and his crew cornered Lisa Turner, Maya's shy friend, mocking her glasses and shoving her backpack to the ground. "You're nothing, Four Eyes," Travis sneered, his voice sharp. Lisa shrank, her eyes darting for escape. Maya, stepping off the bus, saw it all. Her grandparents' words rang clear, James's steady voice, "Protect those who can't," and Celine's fierce reminder, "Strength is for others, not just you." Maya's heart steadied, her resolve ironclad. She walked over, her voice calm but unyielding. "Let her go, Travis." He laughed, turning to face her, his friends egging him on. "What, you think you're tough now?" he taunted, stepping closer, fists raised. Maya didn't flinch. Her body moved like muscle memory, honed by years under her grandparents' coaching. Travis swung, clumsy and overconfident. In 3 seconds, Maya sidestepped, grabbed his wrist and twisted it into a lock, forcing him to his knees with minimal force. He yelped, pain flashing across his face. The crowd of kids gasped, some cheering softly. Maya released him, her gaze steady, not cruel. "Walk away, Travis. Don't make this worse." Lisa, tears in her eyes, whispered, "Thank you." Maya helped her pick up her bag, her hands gentle. That night, at her grandparents' kitchen table, the scent of cornbread warm in the air, Maya shared the story. James nodded, his eyes proud. "You did right, Maya. You protected, didn't destroy." Celine squeezed her hand, her voice soft but firm. "You're showing them what strength really means." Maya felt her parents' spirit serving far away, urging her to stand tall. She wasn't just saving Lisa, she was breaking a cycle. The kids at the bus stop, the ones who'd watched in silence, now saw hope. Maya's strength wasn't just karate. It was courage, rooted in her family's love. Travis wouldn't be the last, but Maya was ready. Franklin High was changing, and she was its heart. Maya Jackson's courage at Franklin High had shifted the school's pulse, but trouble wasn't done with her. Travis Coleman's defeat at the bus stop sparked a backlash. His parents, influential in Oak Ridge, filed a lawsuit, accusing Maya of unprovoked violence. In the stark courtroom, the air heavy with tension, Maya stood before the judge, her braided hair neat, her eyes steady. The lawyer for the Colemans painted her as a danger, twisting her karate skills into a weapon. Maya's voice, calm but clear, cut through the noise. "I learned karate to protect, not to harm. Travis was bullying my friend. I used the least force needed." Her words carried her grandparents' teachings, James and Celine, who sat in the gallery, their faces etched with pride and worry. Lisa Turner took the stand, her voice trembling but resolute. "Maya saved me. Travis wouldn't stop." The courtroom hushed, the truth settling like dust. Maya's thoughts drifted to her parents, serving overseas, and the strength they'd instilled in her. She wasn't fighting for herself alone, but for every kid silenced by fear. James gripped Celine's hand, their presence a quiet anchor. The judge's gavel fell. Maya was cleared, her actions deemed self-defense. The room exhaled, a few supporters clapping softly. Maya turned to her grandparents, their eyes shining with unspoken trust. "You stood for what's right," Celine whispered later, her voice warm. James nodded, his hand on her shoulder. "We always knew you could." The victory wasn't just legal. It was a beacon. Maya's stand had exposed the cost of silence, challenging Franklin High to do better. She felt the weight of her family's legacy, not as a burden, but as wings. The fight wasn't over. Others would test her. But Maya was ready, her heart forged in courage and love. Maya Jackson's courtroom victory rippled through Franklin High, a quiet call to change. In the school's gym, now a space of hope, Maya stood before a group of students, teaching self-defense. Her voice was steady, her movements precise, echoing her grandparents' lessons. "Strength isn't about hurting others," she said, guiding a shy freshman through a block. "It's about control, about standing up." The kids listened, their eyes bright, no longer cowed by fear. James and Celine watched from the bleachers, their pride a silent force. At the school's annual assembly, Principal Brooks took the stage, his voice warm but firm. "Maya Jackson showed us courage. She's not just a student, she's our pride." He unveiled a plaque with her name, now etched in the hallway, a symbol of resilience. The crowd rose, clapping, and Maya's cheeks warmed, but she stayed humble. Her grandparents' words, "Don't flaunt, but don't shrink," anchoring her. Later, walking home with James and Celine, Maya felt the weight of her impact. "You've changed this place, child," Celine said, her smile fierce. James nodded, his voice soft. "You're carrying our lessons further than we ever could." Memories of their dojo days flashed, her first strike, their cheers at her state championship. Her parents' letters from overseas echoed the same pride. "Be our light, Maya." Franklin High was different now. Kids spoke up, Bullies hesitated. Maya's classes grew, her quiet strength a magnet for those seeking courage. She wasn't just teaching moves, she was building a community. The plaque wasn't her goal, but a reminder. One stand could shift a world. As she looked at her grandparents, their hands clasped, Maya knew her work wasn't done. Others needed her, and she'd be there, rooted in love and legacy. Maya Jackson's journey had reshaped Franklin High, but her story was far from over. At the Oak Ridge train station, the Tennessee dawn painted the sky in hues of gold. Maya, her backpack slung over one shoulder, hugged her grandparents, James and Celine, tightly. Her parents, still serving overseas, had sent a letter. "You've made us proud, Maya. Keep shining." She was headed to college, but her heart stayed with Oak Ridge. In the months since her courtroom win, Maya had opened a youth leadership center, a small space where kids learned not just self-defense, but how to stand tall. "Strength is protecting others," she told her students, her voice echoing James's steady wisdom and Celine's fierce love. A letter from a shy boy, pinned on the center's wall, read, "You showed me I'm enough." It brought tears to Celine's eyes as she hung it, her hands trembling with pride. As the train's whistle sounded, Maya looked at her grandparents, their faces lined with years of teaching her to fight for what's right. "You gave me this," she said, her voice soft but firm. James smiled, his grip strong. "You took it further, child." Celine added, "We're always with you." Maya boarded, but her legacy stayed. Her center was growing, a beacon for kids who'd once felt small. Franklin High had changed. Bullies faltered, students spoke up. Maya's stand, rooted in her family's love, had sparked a movement. She wasn't just a girl from Oak Ridge. She was a force, carrying her parents' sacrifice and her grandparents' lessons into the world. As the train pulled away, she felt their strength in her bones. Courage wasn't loud. It was steady, quiet, eternal. What would you stand for? Share your story below, and if Maya's moved you, like and subscribe.